I call to order this regular meeting of the Township Committee, or I guess special meeting of the Township Committee of the Township of Morris this Wednesday, February 27th, 2023. The time is now 6:04 p.m. Will everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Grayzel?
Here.
Ms. Gariglia?
Here.
Mr. Ravitz?
Here.
Ms. Wilson?
Here.
Mayor Jorphy?
Here. This meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. An adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as required by law. Specifically, notice of this special meeting was emailed to the Daily Record and Morris Newsbee on February 14, 2023, and posted on the Township of Morris website. The agenda and resolution of the meeting are also available at www.morristwp.com under the Agenda Center. Certain portions of this meeting may be closed to the public for the purpose of personnel and/or other matters, as outlined in the Sunshine Law. Notice the members of the governing body and the township staff, any use of electronic devices during this meeting shall be used solely for the purposes of township business, and any communications are subject to the Open Public Records Act. I will now turn it over to our Parks and Rec Director, Bill Fulch, for the presentation and public hearing of the Green Acres Park Development Grant application.
Am I okay here or?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Well, I guess, are we?
And the microphone, Bill, that's all just.
Yeah,
so we
for
get
the
it recorded.
recording.
Or if
Stay
you want,
close
if you'd
to it,
rather
I
stand at the podium, if you'd rather stand to the podium, you can do that.
Maybe I'll do that.
Good evening, everybody. Wanted to first introduce two folks that we've been working with on this Green Acres application for park development. I'd like to introduce Mr. Frank Pinto of Pinto Consulting and Mr. Steve Mountain, who's working with Frank on the overall application. It's been a team approach to meet the deadline of getting an application ready for submission to Green Acres. We have a March 1st, 2023 deadline. So I've given you a package of information regarding the application, the highlights, the main pages of that application. There are probably about another 25 pages of appendixes that go along with it. But just to review it quickly, this is for the Collinsville Playground Beatrice Tucker Field Park Improvement Project, which we've been working on for the last year or so. This is an application for the New Jersey Green Acres Program Park Development the funds. As I said, I've mentioned the project title so far. This is for what is known as a standard municipality, which is essentially a municipality that doesn't have specific urban aid municipalities or densely populated municipality. But we'll get to a kind of a wrinkle on that in just a minute. So that would normally allow us to just receive a loan on the program, 2% loan, I believe is the current rate with Green Acres, which is still a very beneficial rate if you're going out versus bonding in most cases. We are looking at 3 parcels in the Collinsville and Tucker, block 10305, lot 1, which is Collinsville, 2.14 acres. And then lots, block 1034, lots 16 and 17, which entail actually 2.5 acres, which is known as the Beatrice Tucker Field. There's a small lot of a 1/4 acre that was added to that park a number of years ago through open space funds acquisition. So we are a standard municipality, but we also qualify, and we thank our consultants for assisting us with this. We are also qualify with the Collinsville community as a adversely stressed and overburdened community, which means that we have a large proportion of minority demographics in that neighborhood. We also have relatively low and moderate income families that are living there. It's also noted as easily accessible for unimpeded pedestrian access. So we have two checkoffs to make us available for what would be a potential 25% Green Acres grant. The property has not been identified as being on any historic preservation list at this point. Very few structures on either property. We're really talking about just the structure of the bathhouse and of course the structure of the playground equipment, fencing that goes along with the tennis court and the basketball courts. We're going to be talking about the overall plan, which is up here, and I've given you a map of each one of those. But just to summarize what we're looking for in terms of funding request, we have a cost estimate on this for a $2 million project. There are some additional engineering, construction supervision costs, which are not eligible under the grant, but there are also some incidental costs that we can apply for. So essentially, the total project cost for us is $2,250,000. However, at the 25% grant level, we would be eligible for those eligible portions of our grant request at $550,000 for the Green Acres program. This property has not received any prior Green Acres funding. We actually have very few parcels in our open space inventory that have received any Green Acres funding in the past, but there have been no acquisition or development dollars used at either of these two parks in the past. We do note that we have a 2023 Congressional Community Project Grant of $500,000, of which we received the facsimile check just this past week. We also have a pending $200,000 grant with the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, Local Recreation Improvement Grant. We don't know the status of that grant going forward. Green Acres asked us to kind of detail the public engagement we've had on the process. And of course, we've had quite a bit since starting the project and hiring our consultants, NV5, to work with us in mid-2022. We had our on-site meeting with the local community with a movie night. We have done a community survey with responses. We have done a number of focus group and stakeholder meetings to gather, key organization input about the plan. We've had some direct mailings to the community. We've also done other outreach in terms of social media about what we're doing on that project. We are looking at a project that will involve some additional maintenance cost to the township. We're actually estimating it based on our Parks review, our Parks Division review of that, by about doubling the cost for maintenance. And that is primarily because the primary facilities of walking paths, as well as the splash play area that is proposed as part of this. So those would be areas where we would increase some additional maintenance costs. So that's the sort of the application. There are some items in the narratives that talks about the project description. Essentially, we're looking at an adversely stressed, overburdened community in Collinsville, as defined by the Green Acres program, with an approximate census population of 1,200 residents and growing. We maintain those two parcels as parkland. We're actually underserved by the amount of parkland we have in the Collinsville neighborhood. Collinsville Playground has been the focal point of that active recreation component in that neighborhood for years, ever since the existence of the Collinsville School, going back into the 1940s and 50s, which was a major site for public recreation. When the township took it over and the school came down, it was converted fully into a park property for the community. The neighboring Beatrice Tucker Park features mostly an open play area and some landscaping, some garden beds, essentially back to the days of Beatrice Tucker herself, when she led the Collinsville gardening group that brought some gardens into that area. We have proposed a number of site improvements as part of the grant project, and I would like to point them out. You have this map in a smaller version, but if I may, and I'll read it from my version of it. So Well, we're trying to look at this as an integrated parcel, and I think we've accomplished quite a bit of that. There are some specifics to either site that we're looking at. At Collinsville, the traditional active recreation site, we want to replace the dilapidated and no longer functional restrooms that are at that site. We want to restore the basketball courts. We want to include new shade. This is very high on the public's interest as we've talked to them. We're going to really look for a new cooling off place for the summer times with the splash play area. Well, we'll be looking at some additional play equipment and seating with shade along that play area. We're going to regrade some of the open play fields. The volleyball court will probably not exist there anymore, the sand volleyball court, but we'll look at other grass type court activities that we can use in an open grassy field. We're going to really look to add some additional opportunities for entertainment and for community events at that location. We're looking at a pad, essentially a hard surface pad to be able to support a stage, a concert program with grass seating as we do, just the way we do at Ginty Field right now. Accessible internal walking and jogging path system. This was one of the top requests of everybody who responded to our survey, the stakeholder groups and the like. We are going to look to include some exercise stations within Collinsville. Again, looking at the opportunity to kind of reuse some of the lower space here where it says number 11, which is pretty much a deserted area within the park. New decorative perimeter fencing and the installation of shade trees throughout the park. And just add one more, we are looking at replacing the existing place safety surfacing. It's been there for about 5 years. It's not really performing to the desire that we have for that. So we look to replace that. At Tucker Field, we have fewer facilities. Again, it's a more passive area, but we're adding to the perimeter walking path, jogging path. Between the two parcels, we have about close to a half mile of paved proposal pathway at Tucker Field and about a quarter mile. So we have the opportunity to bring in close to 3/4 of a mile of looping through the parks for somebody who would like to jog or walk through the park. And again, if anybody's seen how many walkers we have at our Ginty facility, you'd understand how popular that is. We'll probably just expand out some of the open play area where the existing baseball diamond is. We'll leave the backstop, but we'll essentially look to make that more of a grassy area, and a lot of passive seating improvements and shade for the neighborhood to use to essentially enjoy themselves in that park. The park we know is extensively used by a school group, the Unity Charter School. We also had stakeholders working with us from the Collinsville Civic Association, some of the social clubs, some of the churches. So we think we had some really good public input to bring us to this plan. As part of the overall document, we had to provide an environmental assessment. And we'll note a couple of items on that assessment. So we do believe that we're going to see increased usage through this park design, the flexibility and amenities that we're adding. The walking path, the pavilions, the additional playground equipment, all will serve that. On most of the site now is currently in vegetative status as turf, and that's not going to change a heck of a lot. There is a wooded area that's a buffer to the neighboring houses along Carlton Street at Tucker, and that will remain. But the open play areas will be still be mostly natural grass. We'll be adding trees as we go forward. On the site, there are no critical habitats for threatened or endangered species or species of special concerns. There are no streams or wetlands. It's actually a nice site. It's very clean when it comes to the wetlands issues. There are no historical features or structures that we're aware of, although we will probably do some interpretive signage for the origins of the Collinsville community. Just to note that the school was there, not far from the firehouse, and sort of the garden being part of the original Beatrice Tucker and its Collinsville Garden Club. The site soils are essentially very good for using this particular property for redevelopment. They are sandy, loamy soils and very well drained. So there are really no concerns that we've noted environmentally here. We talked a little bit about accessibility. There is a bus stop within the walking distance, about a 2-minute walk, to bring individuals who may want to come by mass transit to get to Collinsville Playground. We do know that parking is at a minimum around the neighborhood, but that probably wouldn't change. We do see this as primarily a neighborhood facility that would be mostly being used by walkers to get there, walkers or joggers. So overall, we believe that this redevelopment plan will really enhance the environment of the park and provide additional benefits to our community. There's essentially no impact on natural resources, and we're actually going to increase the number of trees. We currently have 70 trees on the property. 35 of those trees are actually in that wooded buffer zone. We have right now existing another 35 trees between Collinsville and Tucker Field, and we would likely increase that by at least 50 to 60% more trees to provide some additional shade over there. And so that's always has a cooling effect for the neighborhood. To our knowledge, the only permits that we require on this project are for the Soil Conservation District, soil erosion and sediment control, and likely a water quality permit based on the impervious coverage that we have on the walking paths. So that's the primary elements of the application right now. We will also be submitting the Township's recreation and open space inventory, which we have on file. We've actually converted the format to make sure it meets the current Green Acres requirements for submission. And there'll be a number of other mapping items that'll be added to it. We did note there is a requirement that we file about any tree removal. Right now, we are not planning, I've confirmed that again today with our consultants, not planning any tree removals on the property at this time. You know, that might be an incidental tree or not, but it's anything with essentially a base diameter of 6 inches or more. And we do not see any that we would be removing at this point. So if you have any questions, happy to try to answer them. But
one of the things in this that I didn't hear tonight, which might be on a subsequent part of this, is new lighting for the park, for the jogging paths, or any new other post lighting that's going to illuminate the park or areas of the park after dark. Is that coming? Is that forthcoming?
it will be, yes. It's on our list of items. It's not really a new facility. We have lighting there, and yeah, it'll be part of the design.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
It looks to me from looking at the map like the tennis courts are eliminated, right?
Yes. And
Was there
So-
discussion among the public about that during your?
yes, there was. And we found very low level interest, both in the survey and from the community meetings about them. They really haven't been used. They're more interested in the hardscape basketball courts and restoring them to their former usage and viability. We are looking at, there's a small paved area that we use for summer programs when we're there, and we're actually going to recreate that in another area. There may be some further discussion about the tennis courts, but right now we do not see them being as part of the project.
So on area 9, it says entertainment stage. Can you?
We're not down to the nitty gritty details of design at this point. This is a concept now.
It's a concept.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we will be looking at some level, whether we call it a stage or a staging area, it has to be equipped with utilities so we can do performances there, electric, usually water, things like that.
But that was brought up and supported by the public?
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mayor.
You
You
can
have a
get-
question, go.
No, so timeline, what are the key dates we're expecting? And how is that going to impact, I suppose, construction or our construction timeline?
So Green Acre tells us that anticipate project approvals one way or another by July 1st, 2023.
That's pretty quick.
But we're not going to be waiting for July 1st, 2023. This is a concept plan that we're moving, once we finish another public input session or two, get all our options squared away, we'll be moving into the design phase. Part of that design phase is there's a survey elements that have to be done so we can start doing the design more finitely to add these facilities in. So that will start by, I'm not going to say March, but April latest, we'll start on the survey and then moving into the design elements.
Great. And will you gentlemen need to present to Green Acres or anything, or is it just strictly a paper application you're going to
It's-
present and everything? No presentation?
Yeah, it's an electronic
You don't
submission.
get to state our case or anything?
This is a change in the Green Acres program, I think, for the better.
Okay.
There are lots of smaller communities like Collinsville that have not been able to take advantage of the opportunity to get Green Acres funds and a bonus, let's say a 25% grant as part of that program, because they didn't meet the urban aid municipality or they didn't have the right statistics. So this is the first time Green Acres has actually identified communities that can apply for the 25% bonus, if you will. So that's a real positive in the program, and I believe they're going to move aggressively, having chatted with the Green Acres folks as well as the Assistant Commissioner's office there about what their intents are for this next year. I can't promise anything, but I think our application will match up very well. But I've thought that our applications in prior areas have matched up very well with community development funding. But in a competitive atmosphere, that can be something that is not as favored against housing and other elements. In this case, we're essentially recreation park project versus recreation and park projects. And this particular zone is got just the demographics that support this type of investment from the state of New Jersey. And it's brand new, so I don't know how many individuals will be submitting grants for this money.
Okay.
But there's a pretty sizable number of grants they're looking to push out this year. It's an aggressive year for Green Acres.
Great. It's good to hear. Donna?
You mentioned about how the maintenance cost would double for the township. And did I hear you say part of that is because of the splash play area?
Yeah.
And is the maintenance on this splash play area, obviously that has they have to come more often. I mean, you see those and they work well, and then sometimes you see them not working at all. So I just curious if you.
Splash play areas have their ups or downs in design. If you get the right, we have a splash play area at within our pools, actually, at the swim pools. But we know historically we have very low registration for our swim pools from the Collinsville neighborhood. That's why we would like to really do a cooling facility there. But splash pads are looked at by departments of health now as something that you really should be doing filtration and chlorination for. We happen to have an expert pool operators. Actually, we have 3 of them. So that would be our workforce would be able to take care of those facilities. But it does require a trip over there and relatively daily maintenance while they're open.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Piggybacking on a couple of questions, first on the splash play area. I know one of the things that we had talked about in the Parks and Rec Committee is usage of the splash play area in the off season. What is envisioned for the usage of, area 4 in the areas or the seasons that aren't hot? Can there be multiple uses of that area?
We'll certainly try our best to get that design element in there.
Right.
But we looked at how this all worked in terms of placement within the park, and we think we have essentially the best layout we could come up with at this time. I don't envision it to be a extremely large area, just someplace to cool off. So I don't know what kind of multi-uses that we would look in there. But that being said, if it's relatively flat and it's essentially a concrete pad, brushed concrete, something like that, there could be court games and other types of things that could be overlaid into that zone.
Thank you. And also getting back to the mayor's question on the timeline, I know one of the things, again, that we've talked about in the past is being kind of shovel ready to start this project either late this summer or early fall. Do you still anticipate that as being realistic?
I do.
September timeframe?
I do. I am an optimist. And that will, again, predicated on the fact that we start to advance the actual design elements, the actual plans and specifications that we'll have to develop going forward, getting the survey done, moving forward into an agreement to work with a designer to give us the plans and specs and putting that out to bid. So we're still following that as a summer bidding opportunity with hopefully bids return August and ultimately an award that would be in early September and moving into construction in 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a number of questions. First, generally, in terms of Green Acres, are there any restrictions that are going, not that we're concerned about them, but just so we understand, once you take the Green Acre funding, does it put certain restrictions on the parkland?
The restrictions is you can't restrict non-residents of non-residents in New Jersey from coming to use the facility, which I don't believe that we would anticipate doing on this particular facility anyway. So that's the main one. There are overlaying rules and regulations that you have to abide by when you accept Green Acres money, particularly for development projects, but that's the primary one. It's all about whether you're going to charge a fee. Often it comes down to the fees, Ms. Grazel. You can't charge double, more than double what you would pay, a resident would pay to use that facility. Again, we don't envision this as a pay to play facility, that it would be open for general use.
But if we did have, let's say, a basketball league that required a sign up, it would have to be open to everybody.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
Okay, so Morris Township residents wouldn't get preference over, let's say, Morristown residents?
You can set up some portals, if you will, in order to be able to balance your league. So, I don't want to stumble over this, but generally the theory is if you accept Green Acres funding for a particular facility and you're running an activity at that facility, it has to be open to all the residents of the state of New Jersey from whom the Green Acres money comes from. You don't have to let non-residents in, but you are allowed to charge a fee. The fee would be no more than double what a resident would pay.
Okay. Next question. Hopefully this is a situation where build it and they will come, and hopefully they will come by foot. But I expect a certain portion of people will come by car. Was a parking analysis done of what the attendance at the park might be, and if there's sufficient parking in the area?
We have had many conversations about parking. We don't really see a lot of opportunity to do what we consider to be on-site parking because the area is really small. We don't want to lose much in the way of parkland. There are opportunities to park along Walnut and Cleveland, on Carlton, and there's also opportunities to park on Cedar. So those would be the main areas for individuals who want to come to that facility would be parking. It would be on-street parking.
And currently, I think Cleveland is just on one side of the street. Is that correct, or is there parking on both sides?
One side.
So just throwing out a suggestion. I mean, I think that we need more parking if we're going to build something this significant. Maybe we widen Cleveland and take a few feet away from the park to create a whole stretch of parking along Cleveland on that side of the park. Just throw that out as an idea. Because otherwise we're forcing cars in front of neighborhood houses. Basically, that's what's going to happen. anybody who comes to the park is going to be parking in front of somebody's house in the neighborhood. So I just want to acknowledge that. Moving on to the next question. Do you know how many respondents that you had were Hispanic or Latino?
We do not. We do know that we provided the survey in both English and Hispanic, Spanish language. We did not receive any Spanish language responses on the survey. So the percentage that came back on the surveys all responded to the English version of the survey.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so given the changing demographics of the neighborhood, I think we might have missed out in getting some feedback from the Hispanic and Latino community. One suggestion I had had previously over the past few years is taking the basketball court and converting it to a futsal court. And for those who don't know futsal, it's like a 5-on-5 or 6-on-6 soccer, where you do it on a smaller surface, and it's usually on a hard surface. It's not on a grass surface. And it's become very, very popular, and there are leagues around it. And I think using the basketball court to serve the Latino community with a futsal court would behoove us.
Just real quick, I mean, we're going to be able to do soccer fields on Tucker and be able to have smaller fields too, especially for youth soccer too. So I could see that purpose there. And I would say that I think Bill and his team did more than we've done before in terms of outreach to the Hispanic.
Oh, no, yeah,
community.
no, I'm not faulting Bill that they didn't respond, but I'm just saying that if we had gotten some responses, I would think that futsal and soccer would be at the top of their list.
The best response we had from the Latino community was on the movie night, where we did have a large turnout, and they participated on our design boards, if you will. Futsal was one of the opportunities that were shown on the design board. It only had a couple of responses that somebody wanted that. The major elements that you saw responded in terms of positives for the park are the ones that I think you see in this initial design that we're looking at today. But yeah, there's always there's always opportunities for modifications and changes, Jeff. So
great.
Right.
And then moving over to Tucker Field, the size of the field that's there, what kind of events can we hold? What kind of games? Is it big enough for a full-size soccer field?
It is not big enough for a full-size soccer field. It is not big enough for a baseball field, although it has been used for that over time. What we see is that it's more of a pickup game or a picnic area for individuals who come down and want to kick a ball around, fly a kite, throw the Frisbee, all those types of activities, which we have only limited space for. So we're not necessarily envisioning it as a place where it's going to be permitted for the local soccer league for them to come and hold practices, although they could always ask for it. Their interests have pretty much migrated to other facilities, mostly in the synthetic turf variety. This is something we don't have in this neighborhood, and that's basically an open grassy play area that's flat. We know that the Unity Charter School does use it for a lot of games on that field, and we're hoping that others will come down and use it the same way.
Is it big enough for lacrosse?
You can put a lacrosse, couple sticks out there and a goal, but it's not wide enough or long enough for what you consider standard lacrosse play.
Okay. So in terms of the permitting of the field, so if people did want to go play soccer there, and I appreciate your comment about them migrating, but it's well known that Central Park is just, you can't get field space there anymore. It's very hard to get. And again, this is an opportunity to provide a place for kids to play, even if it's not a full-size field, half-size field, whatever it might be. I just wondered what your thinking was in terms of just having it in open spaces as opposed to allowing more organized sports to come in and utilize it.
We have underutilized areas right now in the park system that are certainly apt for additional use by lacrosse, by soccer, by youth sports. Again, most of the activity has migrated to synthetics. rightly or wrongly, that's what the leagues are enjoying. So I often have unutilized space at our Jean Street soccer field, at Ketch Road. We're going to be adding another open multi-purpose field at essentially Prescott Road when that is ready to open. So we have lots of open space game fields or practice fields for youth leagues. This one in particular doesn't lend itself to the dimensions that you would want for viable practices and or games. And we see it predominantly as an area. And I think the neighborhood also saw it as predominantly an area where individuals can just go out there and play with their kids.
Great. And last question, there's something about passive, I saw it somewhere, passive seating at Tucker. Did I see that somewhere? What is passive seating?
More
mean?
benches, more
Just-
benches, more benches, more, places where people can perhaps socially interact, groups of benches in shaded areas. That's pretty much passive.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for your good work on this.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? I will open it to questions from the public. I at least see one member of the public on. Two members of the public on. If you wish to ask a question, please raise your digital hand. Seeing none, is there, so I have the motion to open it? May I please have a motion to open the public comment period?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Give it another minute for anyone to raise their hand on Zoom. Seeing none, is there a motion to close the public comment portion? Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Bill, for all of your work on this. This is a huge project. It's a very exciting project. And I just want to give kudos to you and to Tim for not only seeing this through for the past, I guess, year where we started this, but also utilizing different resources, whether it's from Frank and Steve to be as strategic consultants for this grant, but also going with MV5 and just trying to tap as many resources as you can to make sure this project is not only as successful as possible, but we're doing it in a very quick turnaround and taking advantage of the funding sources that we have available to us. So thank you for all the work you're doing on this. I'm really looking forward to the open meeting on March 8th. Okay. Really? Or we go to the resolution?
Oh, I'm sorry.
So now we'll move into the resolution. That'll allow us to submit the application. So I will turn it over to our clerk to read the resolution.
You want me to read the entire resolution or
I
just
think
the
just the
title?
title,
Okay.
please.
Enabling resolution authorizing submission of a grant application to the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Green Acres Program for improvements to Collinsville Playground and Beatrix Tucker Park.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve resolution 71-23?
So moved.
I will second that. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Grayzel,
Yes.
Ms. Gariglia,
Yes.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Jorfi.
Yes. All right, moving on to our general commentary. There are currently two members of the public on the Zoom. May I please have a motion to open the public comment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
If you're a member of the public wishing to speak on Zoom, please raise your hand. Seeing none, is there a motion to close the general public portion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we just have adjournment. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We will adjourn. May I please have a motion to adjourn the special meeting now?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our next regular Township Committee meeting will be held on Wednesday, March 15th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in person and via Zoom. Closed session will start at 5 p.m. Have a good night, everyone.
All right. Well done.